This is CBN Newswatch.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN Newswatch. I'm George Thomas. The White House has just weeks left to decide how many refugees the U.S. will admit next year. And the pressure from refugee advocates, well, it is growing. This week, the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom spoke out and condemned reported administration plans to slash the numbers. Heather Sells reports.
For almost 40 years, the U.S. has led the world in accepting refugees. Churches like this one in North Carolina have welcomed them with open arms. But right now, refugee advocates are worried about reports that the White House will end its refugee program or reduce it to a trickle.
It would be disappointing for sure. We take seriously the command of Jesus to love our neighbor, especially the vulnerable and the marginalized.
Since 1980, the U.S. has resettled an average of 80,000 refugees a year. But as the Refugee Council notes, the Trump administration has cut that number every year. In 2017, it capped the refugee ceiling at 50,000, then 45,000 in 2018. It dropped it to 30,000 last year, and this year, advocates worry the administration might end it. The U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom says it's alarmed. It's asking the administration to reset and accept 95,000. So far, the administration has defended the cuts, saying it's trying to create stable conditions for religious freedom so people don't have to flee.
We're still the most generous, welcoming nation anywhere in the world. Our objective has been to try and do what those people really want in most cases, which is just to stay in their own country.
But on CBN's Faith Nation Thursday, the Commission's Nadine Mayenza made the case for letting more refugees in, saying that sometimes those who are persecuted for their faith must leave.
We don't want to empty the Middle East out of religious minorities, of Christians, Yazidis, but there are some instances where they can't go back. We're talking about Iraqi Christians. I met a family in Jordan just recently that had come from Mosul. She was a hairdresser. He was a school teacher. She was stabbed by ISIS. They were targeted. They left. They tried to come back, and they got a phone call saying if they did, they would be killed. You know, it's not safe for them to return. I think about pastors that have been running churches in China, Iran, places like that. They can't go home. So we're particularly worried about those that truly can't go back.
The Evangelical Immigration Table is also advocating for refugees. It includes prominent evangelicals like Pastor Sam Rodriguez. And this week, 27 retired generals and admirals spoke up, saying that the military depends on refugees in the fight against terror. One hint that the White House is feeling the pressure: the head of immigration told reporters that with the Supreme Court's support for an asylum ban on immigrants, there may be more resources for refugees. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Thank you, Heather. We will have more on these stories and others this evening on Faith Nation. As always, you can catch it right here on the CBN News channel. The second visit in a year for a delegation of US Evangelical Christian leaders to Saudi Arabia. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jeddah, the visit marked one more step in a growing relationship between American evangelicals and the Sunni Arab leaders of the Middle East.
The visit certainly made the national news here.
To see every newspaper in this country have evangelicals above the fold, not hiding our visit, but celebrating our visit, this is, to put it mildly, this is historic.
The delegation met with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman on the eve of the anniversary of 9/11. To some, it may seem like an unlikely time, but the leader of the delegation, Joel Rosenberg, said there was a purpose behind the timing.
The Saudi Arabia of 18 years ago, the Saudi Arabia that, out of which Osama bin Laden came, Al-Qaeda, and the radical theology of violent jihad, that Saudi Arabia doesn't exist anymore. They have made sweeping changes that most Americans, most Christians aren't aware of.
I was profoundly astounded of how much freedoms are being given to women here.
We talk about veiled women, women under the veil, and the country under the veil. And I think there's a veil over people's perceptions in the West. There's a misunderstanding.
Many in the West see the Crown Prince and Saudi Arabia through a prism, including the murder investigation of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. While not dismissing the crime, Rosenberg and the delegation felt it important to be in the room with a voice.
The opportunity to be in the room and build a relationship means you can also ask hard questions. You can ask direct questions. You can engage on human rights issues, religious freedom issues. How can you affect it if you don't have an opportunity to talk to the top leaders?
Nothing was hidden. Nothing was off the table in terms of discussion.
Larry Ross served as Billy Graham's spokesman for more than 3 decades.
I think Mr. Graham was a good example of how speaking truth to power and getting accomplished a lot more personally, privately, than you can making bold public statements, critical statements.
Only 2 U.S. senators have visited Saudi Arabia in the past year. Rosenberg and the delegation hope other U.S. leaders will seek to meet the country's leaders face to face and see firsthand a sometimes unknown story. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Chris. Joining us now is CBN Chief International Correspondent Gary Lane, who has incidentally been to Saudi Arabia. Yes. So Joel Rosenberg says Saudi Arabia has changed since 9/11. It's not the same country that it was. Has it changed, Gary?
Not to the extent I think that Rosenberg would like you to believe. It's not as rosy a picture as he's painting for you. Just ask Jamal Khashoggi. He's dead now, and our Central Intelligence Agency says that Prince Salman is responsible, or was responsible, for that murder. But there have been some slight improvements, George. I mean, there have been some good things. Women now can get a passport. They don't have to travel or get travel permission from their husbands anymore. I guess some are allowed to drive now, but they're still not allowed to sign contracts, rent an apartment, and that type of thing. And then also there's cinemas have been allowed, movies now, Western movies. So there have been some changes, but I think it's more in favor of Israel as far as relations with Israel are concerned. Saudi Arabia has been talking with the Israelis. So there are some improvements, maybe not to the extent that I think Rosenberg and others would like you to believe.
Gary, this meeting happened, the second meeting happened on the eve of 9/11. Saudi Arabia played a very important role. You had the hijackers, majority of whom were from Saudi Arabia. Was that a concern to you?
Well, I think many evangelicals and even some conservatives were concerned about the timing of this being on the eve of 9/11. And they're saying, look, they're just being used as propaganda for propaganda purposes by bin Salman and the Saudis. And that may be true. But I think, George, it reminds me of what Billy Graham told me years ago when he had returned from the Soviet Union. I said to him, well, aren't you concerned that you were used for propaganda purposes by the communists to show, oh, we have religious freedom here and so forth, when that isn't true at all? And he said, look, Brother Gary, if God opens a door, I'm going to walk through it. And I think these evangelicals, this delegation felt the same way. The Saudis had opened the door, they were going to walk through it.
A similar thing, it's not just happening in Saudi Arabia, by the way. A similar delegation met with several times with Egypt's President al-Sisi. What have you heard from Egyptian Christians about that?
Well, a lot of Egyptian Christians, if you talk to those on the ground in Upper Egypt, those who are suffering in the hands of Muslims there, they say, look, we haven't had the churches built. We had a big cathedral just outside of Cairo. There was another one built for the martyrs in Upper Egypt in El Minya province. But other than that, there aren't new churches being constructed. Yes, permits have been given to some churches there, but these are churches that have been in existence for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years that have been waiting that long to have church permits for building and construction and that sort of thing. So same type of thing, George. Many of the Egyptian Christians feel like he's using them. El-Sisi's using them.
Okay, terrific. Gary, as always, appreciate your insights on this.
Yes, and they're doing that because they want to be close to President Trump, which they know that the evangelicals are.
That's right. Okay, terrific. Thank you, sir. We will stay overseas here for a moment. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said a war with Gaza could happen at any moment. This week, terrorists in Gaza fired several rockets at Israel. The Israel Defense Forces responded by attacking several Hamas targets. After returning from his trip to Russia, Netanyahu said Israel may conduct a military operation in the Gaza Strip before the nation goes to elections on September 17th. He told an Israeli TV station in a rare interview that overthrowing Hamas is most likely inevitable. Pope Francis will travel to Thailand and Japan in November. The visit expected to highlight his call for complete nuclear disarmament and to honor the small Catholic communities in each country. Japanese officials said the visit is a way for the Pope to gain understanding of the international community about atomic bombing. A call for a world without nuclear weapons has been Francis's longtime message. The last Pope, by the way, to visit the two countries was John Paul II in the 1980s. Coming up, another tropical storm headed straight for the Bahamas. What meteorologists are predicting. And before we go to the break, here's a look at what's trending on CBNNews.com.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
Here, we're committed to a heritage of rigorous scholarship dating back over 1,000 years.
And to a faith tradition dating back 1,000 more.
This is how we create a culture of inquiry where no topic is off limits.
And a culture of hope.
Anything's possible!
It's Christian leadership.
And it's changing the world for the better.
It's higher learning.
It's greater knowing.
It's what makes us whole.
It's what makes us regent.
Welcome back to the CBN News channel. The government of the Bahamas has issued a tropical storm warning for the same area that was recently devastated by Hurricane Dorian. The Category 5 hurricane flattened large areas, including entire neighborhoods. The official death toll stands at 50, but is expected to rise, and 1,300 people are still listed as missing. CBN's Operation Blessing, you see them right there, has been on the ground helping those in need, providing clean water, solar lamps and medical supplies and medicines, along with food, as the country struggles to deal with the mass destruction from Dorian. Joining us now is Chief Meteorologist with weatherbell.com, my man, Joe Bastardi. Joe, great to have you back on. So tell us about this approaching storm. What's expected to happen here?
Well, good news for the Bahamas. I don't think it's that big a deal as far as those places go, even though the center may go very close to them. It's weak. Most of the heavy precipitation and higher winds will be off to the northeast, more of a nuisance situation to clean up operations. Now, when it gets north of the Bahamas, I think it is going to become a hurricane. And far to the east of the Florida coast, our company is much further east with the track, at least in relation to Florida. However, during next week, it may get blocked from going completely out to sea off the South Atlantic coast. And if that's to be the case, then as the week wears on, we may have a slow-moving hurricane sitting off the southeast coast trying to make up its mind whether it wants to come back toward the United States or not. But the good news for the Bahamas is that the bulk of the worst weather is going to miss the Bahamas. I won't say that it's going to be perfect weather. They're going to get some squalls, some thunderstorms, some heavy rains, maybe a couple of inches of rain out of Abaco and perhaps Grand Bahama, and wind gusts of 30, 40 miles an hour, but far short of what could happen, and of course what did happen with Dorian.
Do you expect this particular system to make landfall in the United States?
Well, I did yesterday. Right now, the models are all out to sea with it. The problem I have is I've seen patterns like this Jean in 2004, Betsy 1965, for instance, where storms that looked like they were going to head out to sea got blocked by a big high pressure system. And this has the same high pressure system that can squeeze it and send it out with the upper air pattern the way it is, can get out in front of it and block it. So it starts going out and turns around, starts coming back. And it's also in that area notorious for slow moving erratic storms. If you go back and look at hurricane tracks over the years, that area off the South Atlantic coast in September, even October, storms love to dance around there. So it may be maybe next week at this time, this is still in the charts. And the other problem is that the overall pattern is going to get active again, quite active. I mean, I'm worried we see something try to develop in the western Gulf of Mexico Monday or Tuesday, just before making landfall in Texas. Tropical wave in the Atlantic looks like it's going to try to develop when it gets into the area that Dorian was in and this one was in. So I think the pattern's going to be active the rest of the way in. And I guess I'd be surprised if there weren't a couple more storms that did not threaten the United States. I'd be more surprised if there wasn't than if there was.
Yeah, let's talk about that. There are other storm systems dancing in the Atlantic right now. Any of them of concern to you, sir?
Well, the system in the far eastern Atlantic is not a concern until it gets to where these storms are going. The preseason forecast that we put on showed that storms were not going to be that strong around the islands, and they're not. It's when they get northwest. By the islands, I mean Hispaniola, Puerto Rico. And even though you said, well, Dorian was strong near Puerto Rico, not nearly as strong as what it was up in the Bahamas. So the problem we have this year is that in close to the United States, within 300, 400 miles, is where storms are favored to intensify. So you could get some tropical wave that doesn't look like anything for 8, 10 days, but it starts getting in closer to the United States, gets into the Gulf or the southeast coast or in the Bahamas like this one. This one just didn't appear. It's been out there tracking across the Atlantic. They get in closer and then they try to develop. So that's unique to this particular season. But of course, when they develop in close, you have to really, really take a look at them. Back in 2017, or even Florence, that got developed way, way away from the United States, so we could see it coming 10, 15 days away.
Yeah.
So that's the problem with the rest of the season, forecast headache for the rest of the season.
Okay, terrific. Joe, as always, sir, thank you so much and have a fantastic weekend, man.
Okay, you too. Thanks for having me on.
You're most welcome. Well, folks, after the break, football season is underway. All eyes are on this year and what to expect in the season.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com. Want to be a part of a community that inspires your spiritual growth while winning prizes? The all-new MyCBN app. Connect with the community for prayer and encouragement. Track and set spiritual goals. Enjoy conversation starters with friends and family. And collect points to win prizes. The all-new MyCBN app. A great place to belong. Download the app at cbn.com/mobile. Grow, connect, have fun. The all-new MyCBN app.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs, from health to entertainment, you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place, from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Check your local listings or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Come home to the sounds of Southern Gospel from CBN Radio. You'll enjoy a rich Southern blend of bluegrass, classic gospel, and Southern gospel favorites like the Gaithers, the Crab Family, and bluegrass sounds like Mountain Faith. So make yourself at home with the all-new CBN Southern Gospel, now available at cbnradio.com.
And welcome back to the show. As we look toward the weekend. There's a lot coming up with football season in full swing. CBN's Ephraim Graham spoke with our sports reporter and anchor Sean Brown for more.
We've got Antonio Brown making headlines all over the place again. I feel like he did it all summer long. So what's happening? Where are we now?
Well, I'll tell you, out of all of the things that has happened in the last few weeks, from frostbite, helmet issues, arguing with the Raiders, and being released from the Raiders, now signing with the Patriots. Well, in the last few days, he's was accused of sexual assault from his former trainer. Allegedly, he sexually assaulted his former trainer on 3 different occasions between 2017 and 2018. Of course, out of all the other things that we've heard from or about Antonio Brown, this is definitely the most serious. He's taking all of this into Foxborough and hadn't played it down this season. We're heading into week 2, and this is the latest. He has said that he is innocent. He hadn't committed any type of crimes or anything against his former trainer. By now, most of us have heard about this. What we want to know is, did this actually take place? Because obviously this is very serious heading into this new team. The NFL has its own set of rules, so we have to see how this plays out. But that is the latest. It's going to unfold as the day goes on heading into the weekend. So it's unfortunate, but that is the latest.
Let's turn to my team, my son's team, the Saints. We know that earlier this week we reported on Drew Brees. He's taken a hit for something done off the field, actually promoting Take Your Bible to School Day. Left-leaning organizations and media outlets are bashing him for working with Focus on the Family because of that organization's conservative views and its traditional stance on marriage. I know Drew Brees also responded. Many may not have heard that. So what's he said, and what's your take on how this is all playing out?
Well, first of all, if you look at the video or listen to it, he didn't say anything about who you could and could not marry. This is strictly about this event, Bring Your Bible to School Day. And I mean, there's several organizations in just about every high school across the country. FCA is also included in that, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So what he's supporting isn't foreign. It's just an event that literally just encourages kids to share their faith at school. So he didn't say anything about who you could and could not marry. So to try to suggest that he said anything else is absurd. I've interviewed I've interviewed Drew, and he's a fantastic gentleman, solid man of God, and that's not who he is. He even responded with 2 verses. He said, hey, these are the verses that I live by. Love God with all your might, and love your neighbor as yourself. That's his response. He said, let me set the record straight. This is what I live by. And that love is all-inclusive. It doesn't matter your sexual orientation of any of that, or any of that. And so to suggest that he's doing anything else is inaccurate.
Let's blow this one away, please. Now, other than our favorite teams, what are the games we should be watching for this weekend in college and professional?
Ephraim, okay. I have to go with the Saints-Rams only because of what we saw in the NFC Championship game with these 2 teams.
You got it right.
The controversial call. This is a grudge match. We don't know that if the officials made that call, if they got it right, the Saints might have made it to the Super Bowl, and we may have had a different outcome.
If they got it right.
If they got it right. So I want to see that just because of that. But also on the college level, I've got to keep my eyes on Alabama and Clemson. Alabama's got South Carolina. Clemson has Syracuse. I just want to see how this championship game is going to shape up. I'll be watching them all season. I'm excited. It's always exciting watching Alabama and Clemson. So very excited to see those 2 games.
We'll be watching that for sure. So what's coming up this weekend on your show, Going the Distance?
Yes. Okay, so look, I did the whole show from my alma mater, Virginia Union University.
They let you come back.
They let me come back, man. My old stomping ground. Caught up with my fraternity brothers, our fraternity brothers.
Yes,
the
indeed.
men of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, A-Phi. They had me out there stepping, man. So very fun, a lot of fun. But we've got I've got an interview with Tony Dungy coming up about his new book, The Soul of a Team. I've got interviews with my colleague Tom Beering, caught up with Alabama QB Tua Tagovailoa, and we also have Houston Astros relief pitcher Will Harris. So it's going to be a good show. Saturday, 7:30 Eastern, man. Sunday, 6:30 Eastern.
You
so
got
it's going to be fun.
7:30, 6:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. Thank you, Sean.
You got it, man.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. The feature film about the life and work of Fred Rogers is scoring rave reviews at the Toronto Film Festival this week. It stars Tom Hanks and doesn't hit American theaters until November. But we have an exclusive first look at the film to share right now.
It's a decision we make to release a person from the feelings of anger we have at them.
Fred Rogers grew up outside of Pittsburgh, and he dreamed of being a minister. He went to seminary school, and he gave people liberty to explore something deep and vulnerable about themselves.
I asked him to pray for me. I figured anyone who is going through what he is going through must be awfully close to God.
He had that amazing gift of looking at a person and seeing what that person needed, that he was going to minister to that person. And that person, in this particular case, was me.
We are trying to give the world positive ways to deal with their feelings.
This piece will be for an issue about heroes. Do you consider yourself a hero?
This movie is sort of like an episode of Mr. Rogers for adults.
You said it was a play at the plate. Is that what happened to you?
I'm here to interview you, Mr. Rogers.
Well, that is what we're doing, isn't it?
His ability for empathy was enormous. What he could do immediately to any person with any kind of problem, any human condition, was relate to it.
He used to say, I think of myself as an emotional archaeologist because I'm fascinated by the stories that people bring.
There's a mission there. There's a need to turn the lights on in every human being.
Anything human is mentionable. Anything mentionable is manageable.
My hope with this film was always that this isn't about telling the story of Mr. Rogers or telling a biopic.
Yeah, incredible story, incredible man. Well, that is it for this edition of CBN Newswatch. We hope you will join us again next time. From all of us here, have a fantastic rest of this Friday and a beautiful weekend ahead. Goodbye, everyone, and God bless.